Hello everybody. It is 6 a.m. Eastern Time and 12 p.m. Central European Time. Great to see everybody. We're going to talk about data visualization workshop and events. We have a great group of panelists here. We have Christiane Hütter from the University of Vienna, Donát Köller from Semmelweis University, and then Liuhuaying from the Complexity Science Hub in Vienna also, and Kahn from Northeastern, who, if I remember right, are going to present together. Without further ado, let's go over to Chris. I would like to introduce Chris briefly. Christiane Hütter, who I recently had the pleasure of meeting in person for the first time during the IEEE Vis conference, is an architect and a computational bioengineer by training, and currently pursuing a PhD in the research group of Jörg Menche at the Ludwig Boltzmann Institute for Network Medicine at the University of Vienna. Chris explores how virtual reality can help navigate and understand complex biomedical data via 3D data representations and natural language and gesture-based human data interaction and communication. I'm not going to read the entire thing. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks a lot.
So, Rishi, why don't we go straight to Chris's presentation, and then we can come back to these intro slides as we get to these talks.
Perfect. Yeah, should I just start right away? Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks a lot, Andy, for the kind introduction. And thanks for inviting us from the Ludwig Boltzmann Institute of Network Medicine. Since we're kind of a bit new to the business of data viz and exploration, at least in the community, we have been working with data visualization for a while, but just now with Andy and your Kati's team as a collaborator, entered the world of IEEE Vis, which I will also be talking about today. So yeah, given today's topic on data viz workshops and events, I would like to highlight that we had a few recent endeavors that fit this topic in the scientific as well as an artistic context. And yes, exactly, if you please click next. There was or is one installation of ours that kind of fitted as well in here, which is introducing the topic of complex systems that we are kind of working with usually, which are in the realm of biology in a usual case. So protein-protein interaction networks. We visualize them on a daily basis in our research work, but also for artistic purposes. And this is an installation we started at 2022 in the Ars Electronica Center in the Deep Space in Linz in Austria, which is where we kind of showed the versatility and the broad aspects of where complex systems can be found. And one of them was a biological one. If you click next, we also frequently have data stories that we context-based visualize given specific domain data sets in virtual reality. And this is a showing of such data stories where we would usually have a person of ours. This is Felix in the white jumper showing to an audience on screen, as well as one observer in the virtual reality, showing a data story on environmental issues such as microplastics to be found in the human organism. And last but not least, the IEEE Vis conference panel that we recently had with Andy. Thanks again. I will be thanking throughout the presentation on XR visualization frameworks. Talking about how can theoretical frameworks can be shown and extended into XR environments. Yes, next, please. So as I said before, we work with networks as they represent complex systems and are a tool for us to study, explore, and visualize different systems, from biology to memes to electric power grid. And there are some snapshots here shown from this application that I've mentioned that is exhibited and installed in the deep space in Ars Electronica. And those stories evolved, for example, around, we have stories for each data set, and those stories evolved around the robustness of a network, depending on its type, for example, like if it's a geometric one or a scale-free one, and the influence of specific nodes in the network, given their position or their neighbors. And so we try to highlight and research and study phenomena on these network principles and showcasing them to a general audience in this case. Next slide, please. So I've also mentioned data stories, and here's a little some sort of installation pictures showing how this looks like. And yeah, which kind of formats and media we usually try to cover, which are video with audio, text, as is in narration kind of in the background, and live showing, as well as interactive YouTube videos, a mixture of things. We try to, so we usually, we're using this data diver platform programmed by Sebastian in our team, which is built upon Unreal Engine. But we are also experimenting with a new data scientist recently joining, Philip, with WebXR, and trying to accommodate different sort of media outlets, let's say, from for like hardware as well as software independent as possible, and like maybe with lower tech barriers. Like Unreal Engine has a quite high requirements to the technology, or hardware, but WebXR, for example, wouldn't have. But I will going into this with my next slide, which is the IEEE WIS conference, which is a quite large conference. I kind of wasn't even aware of the numbers, but I, for this presentation, researched about it. And it usually brings international researchers and practitioners to a physical site. And this time it was in Vienna, which was very convenient for us. And it's a leading forum on visualization and visual analytics, and highly interdisciplinary, as we also saw, given the different paper sessions, posters, tutorials, panels, workshops. There were even competitions. There was the so-called Austrian Pavilion, where they showcased several research institutes and their applications from different Viennese research and landscape. And there was even an art and science exhibition coupled to it with the University of Applied Arts, the Angewandte, so-called, on different sites in Vienna. So it was super huge for more than 5 days. Full program, and we were lucky enough to be accepted with a panel of ours. Next slide, please. Where we introduced a novel format, and we wanted to cover the topic on challenges and opportunities for theory-grounded data visualization and extended reality. And this, theory-grounded means, or we thought of as, there is several very well documented and theory-grounded data visualizations in a 2D screen-based ecosystem, but in extended reality, this is rather, lacking and not as consistent, not as standardized as we would wish for. So we had these 3 different sub-sessions where we call talk, try, and tell, and they should allow for a vivid discussion as well as an exploration and experiencing part to it. So next slide, please. We invited 5 experts in this 3D immersive analytics ecosystem, and I will just walk you through them quite quickly. There's Chris Bryan, which appeared first, who is an assistant professor in the School of Computing and Augmented Intelligence. And his focus was on data viz and visual analytics, with a very focus on human-centered design and explainability. Then we had Peter Mindek, who is a co-founder and a CTO of Nanographics, who is developing like very high-end, high-class scientific visualizations. A lot of storytelling, visual abstraction comes in, and they're doing very real-time simulations on 3D things that happen in the human organism, for example, like molecular level, and interactive applications as well, and for many concrete scientific audiences and use cases. Then we had Niklas, who is a Willem investigator and professor in Aarhus, and he's like one of the leading experts on immersive analytics, coining the term ubiquitous analytics even. And he offered a lot of insights and novel approaches to this AI, machine learning, teamed interaction with a human in the loop. Then we also had Renata, who had a totally different aspect to our panel. She's an associate professor at TU Wien, and she's not only focusing on data applications for visual exploration, but also on physicalization, which was brings in a very new component to the field. And then we also had Hannes Kaufmann, who's a full professor at TU Wien as well. And he's, a pioneer in VR, AR, and recently also established a mixed reality lab in Vienna, in the heart of Vienna at the TU Wien, where they want to allow for studio, like it's a fully blown studio for immersive video recording, streaming, and remote collaborations. So yeah, he also actually works with physical objects, combining them with virtual and extended reality applications. So we tried to cover a very broad spectrum, as you see. And next slide, please. As I've already mentioned, we had this talk try tell format. Next slide, please, where we had a quite busy schedule, which we might want to dial down next time. It was very ambitious, where we had a very talk and vivid discussion part with the try, where audience could explore the 3 different applications from our institute, the Data Diver, from Andy's team, the Human Reference Atlas Organ Gallery, and from Nikla's team, actually showing the Dash space with this hybrid interface of VR and 2D screen. And then in the tell session, we basically showed, had a recap of what people would have experienced throughout the try session. So there were vivid discussions, and there is some pictures taken. Credits go to Philip in this case from our team, who was busy photographing everyone. There was many from the vivid discussions. I would have taken away that there were many insights from a developer and user perspective, like on tools and usability. One important for me was, for example, that there are opportunities beyond the desktop, but some tasks work better on desktop and or physical space. So, of course, collaboration, if it goes beyond physical locations, is easier in virtual environment, but also physical parts can and should probably be part of this framework at some point. So with this framework, we definitely want to incorporate this embodiment and spatial presence and the motor interaction as like a first-class citizen of data visualization. And the XR should be seen as part of a continuum of human data interaction that includes and not excludes screen-based and tangible physical and immersive analytics. So ideally, we kind of cover a lot with this framework that we would like to have in the end as a building upon this panel, and not excluding any of the parts from digital to physical. If you go to the next slide, please. I wanted to summarize and our discussion points and key takeaways again from the discussions from the tell session and from the try session. And what kind of became very clear is that obviously the hard and software field is kind of, super rapid developing, and things get obsolete here and there or develop further here and there. And it's hard to predict which of the tools will be prevalent around the next few years. Software and hardware related, but so there's a large versatile tool landscape, and each tool comes with benefits. And the decision of which one to take is definitely depending on the specifications of one wants to achieve and build. So somewhat in parallel to the tool decision, or almost independent from it, the theory-grounded framework could support the development of meaningful interpretable visualizations, and should definitely, as of my opinion, go beyond the cool demo part, where it's just an immersive 3D environment that you enter, and this blows off in a few seconds after. And during this conference, which also kind of became very clear, is to me that there is a totally clearly way of introducing hybrid interfaces. So there is really operations that cannot be done without a keyboard, that should not be able, shouldn't be like just translated directly into a 3D environment, but also on a 2D screen, you can never have this embodied spatial cognitive benefits that you would have in a 3D immersive environment. So one of our panelists even pointed out that there shouldn't be so much thinking into categories. So we shouldn't tell digital versus physical, but we rather should incorporate as much as we can, since it's all kind of part of the game and they're all essentially given to specific games and tasks. And there is a lot of work to be built upon. So our panelists as well as collaborators set the stage with certain toolkit formalizations, with certain applications that have been introduced with very different tool sets, as I've mentioned before, with WebXR, Unity, and Unreal being the sort of lead and state-of-the-art tech here. And yeah, so there was a lot of takeaways, and I really enjoyed doing this. And with the next slide, I would actually end with thanking all the collaborators. Andy foremost for steering this as our lead and session chair. Kati, of course, and Jörg for making this all possible, and the whole team for their own providing their expertises to us with tech and hardware and software. Yeah, thanks a lot for listening, and yeah, looking forward for the rest.
Thank you very much, Chris. This was a nice blast from the past, seeing all of those images again from the wonderful panel in Vienna just last month. So fantastic to see that again. We're going to hold questions and discussion until the panel discussion here at the end. It is my pleasure now to introduce Donát Köller. Donát is a junior data scientist and mathematics PhD student at the Budapest University of Technology and Economics. Donát's research interests lie at the intersection of statistics, discrete mathematics, machine learning, and network science. Currently, he's working as a research and teaching assistant at the Human and Social Data Science Lab, the HSDS Lab, focusing on applying machine learning-based solutions to problems in social science-related fields, including educational data science, social networks, and science of science. Donát, it's great to have you here today, and we're looking forward to your talk.
Thank you very much. A quick disclaimer is that I got sick this week, so that's why my voice may sound a little harsh or coarse. So I apologize for that in advance. And this summer school conference may seem like a black sheep in this flock of conferences, because it's not data visualization themed, but data visualization plays a huge role in biomedical data science. So first, I will talk about the summer school part of this joint summer school and conference, which was held in Budapest this summer. Next slide, please. So it was held from the 28th of July to the 5th of August, and the main curriculum was focused around four main areas, which consists of biomedical network science, medical data visualization, machine learning on tabular and medical data, and deep learning on unstructured medical data. And we had the pleasure to host, to accommodate and have like more than 70 participants, even though this is our first summer school and conference in this topic. We have more than 70 participants, which in our perspective, we think it's good enough. And basically the end goal in this summer school was for the students and the participants to showcase that they learned the necessary skills in order to do some biomedical research, is that they had to do small group projects jointly. And yeah, instead of words, I want to show a couple of images from the summer school. First, our director of the Institute of Biostatistics and Network Science, Dr. Roland Molontai, giving his introductory speech and opening remarks, and also presenting the lecturers who held the different types of courses in these four areas. And in the next slide, we can see the participants. Yeah, even though there are still some empty seats here and there. Some of the rows are empty intentionally, but as you can see, we had quite a few attendees already, and based on the free feedbacks, they were also quite content with the quality of the education and the overall organization itself. We also aim to provide ample coffee breaks to further enhance discussions and exchanging ideas. Not always about the projects themselves, but other areas as well. And we can see some groups here diligently working on the group projects that they had to present at the end of the summer school. And the last batch of pictures after this is the final presentation ceremony, and on the left you can see the winning team, because we also awarded the best 3 teams at the summer school, and based on their facial expressions, we can say that they had a really good time here. But you can also see that the audience is also really is listening diligently. Yes. On the next slide, here's a quick, just to showcase the program. It was quite tight, so almost every day from 9 to 5. But that was because the amount of material is huge in general. But we tried to incorporate ample time for breaks, like coffee breaks, lunch break, and we also provided social programs on Friday and Saturday as well, when they had the opportunity to travel around or like see the sights of Budapest, and also go to a nearby really nice and pleasant atmospheric town called Visegrad. And yeah, at the next week, Monday, Tuesday, they had time to prepare and consult with the mentors about the project that they had to present. And at the end, there was the presentation ceremony and the dinner. Next slide. So some words about the lecturers themselves. For medical data visualization, we had the honor and pleasure to have Katie Berner herself. I don't think I need to introduce her. She's a really big name in the world of data visualization. For deep learning and unstructured data, we had Cosmas Capacidis from the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich. For machine learning, for tabular data, we had a BME lecturer, András Gézsi, and for the biomedical network science part, we had Gergely Palla from the Eötvös Loránd University, who is also now working in Semmelweis University. We also incorporated on one of the days a plenary talk, which was hosted Nobel laureate Ferenc Krausz and Cosmas Capacidis, and to showcase their joint work on health monitoring, or on how AI can enhance health monitoring and early disease detection. Unfortunately, Ferenc Krausz was not able to attend, but nevertheless, Cosmas Capacidis still delivered a really insightful and interesting talk in that topic. And as for the data science conference part, there is a little video here. We had a little bit more than 80 participants from more than 14 countries and from 4 continents. So we had from America. The majority were from Europe, but we also had a couple of people from Asia, America, and we also had 2 really cool and nice guys from Africa as well. So we can say that this is really this conference turned out to be really international. Again, a little look at the program. We try to because essentially with this conference, we tried to fill a gap in the space of conferences, because we heard that there is a need for this sort of interdisciplinary biomedical data-driven sort of scientific conference. That's why we also had many the diversity of the sessions were quite large. So we had machine learning, network science in biomedicine, natural language processing, computational and mathematical biology. So that everyone can present their biomedical related work, if it's technological and data driven as well. We also had a lighting session aimed towards younger researchers to present their ongoing or already completed works in just a couple of minutes. Based on the feedbacks, they really liked that one. And then we also had if someone prefers to present their work in a form of a poster, we also had a poster session on the second day on Thursday. Yeah, the next slide, please. Altogether, we had honor to have 4 keynote speakers throughout the conference. One of them being again Katie Berner, but we also had Albert László Barabási, a really big name in network science. We also had the honor to have Pál Marovics-Horváth from Semmelweis University and Péter Horváth from the Helmholtz Munich University Helmholtz Munich and the University of Szeged. And the next couple of slides are going to be images and pictures about the conference. First, we have some pictures about the opening ceremony, where the rector of the university, Semmelweis University, Béla Merkeli, is giving his opening remarks. On the next slide, we have one of the keynote speakers, Albert László Barabási, who was giving a really inspiring and really thought-provoking talk about how analyzing protein structures of the human body and the chemical constitution of different foods can lead to the discovery of previously unknown or under-analyzed food-based remedies to different diseases and illnesses. So it was really interesting talk. On the next slide, we can see that was on the first day there was a exhibition and reception part within the schedule where Katie Berner could present her astounding work in the places and spaces, pioneering data visualization, like collaboration, where the attendees, aside from having a little reception, could interact with the maps and visualization tools in an interactive way on that touch screen that sits on the left picture. A couple of pictures about the poster section. On the left, we have Pál Malovics Horváth and the jury to score and to have a look at all of the posters, because we also awarded. We also had a best poster award, a best talk award, and the best lighting talk award. And the overall atmosphere was really good in my opinion, and everyone had a really pleasant time there. And this is just a quick group photo at the end of this conference. We can see that quite a few people were attended. So we are really happy we are really happy about this. Yeah. Yeah, a couple of words about like the aftermath in quotation marks. So we had in-house social from the Semmelweis University, but aside from that, which is I think more important, is the out-of-house social media coverage. Starting from the next slides, we had different institutes and universities covering this event. For example, the Pazman University, the Sigma Drugs Research Laboratory, and also Clinomics, from which every institute sent like an ambassador or an attendee to the conference, and they came back with really pleasant experiences. But we also had like individual coverages on the next slides, impressions other than coverages on the next slides, from both Hungarian and international attendees as well. And we can from these feedbacks we can deduce that this was a successful conference when it comes to like impressions. Yeah. We also had a little press coverage in-house from the Semmelweis University part, and a little bit of out-of-house press coverage from Behavior Magazine and IT Business Magazine, two renowned human resource and business conference organization-related magazines, where very had an article about the whole conference, the ins and outs, and what hardships we not endured, but found came in contact with, and yeah, that's basically it. And yeah, we are happy to announce that we are going to have the same summer school and conference, or planning to have, but it's like 99% that we are going to have it next year as well. We have a couple of objectives for the next conference, increasing the number of participants, for example, and involving new international keynote speakers, experts in the fields of AI and network science. And we also plan to make a digital conference publication with the ISBN number and the DOI number as well. The date for the summer school and conference next year is from the 6th to the 19th of July. And the venue is going to be, again, the Semmelweis University, but a different building. More info on that, but the most important thing is that we are going to, planning to make it a hybrid conference, because from the feedbacks, we heard the need to also make it available for other people who are not able to come to the conference in person to attend and listen to the lectures. And the other important thing is we are still looking for sponsors. So if you know anyone who might be interested in sponsoring an event like this, please give us a call out give them an email address from our side. And there's also a QR code there, so you can scan it and which directs you to the site of the conference. And that's basically what I wanted to say here. Thank you for attention, and stay tuned for more info. We are going to have, I think, in January, roughly like concrete program and schedules about the whole conference, and you can find here the email addresses of the organizing committee, and we also have a general email address there. And yeah, thank you for attention again, and looking forward to the rest of the section.
Thank you very much, Donát, for this beautiful review and also for these great pictures that you have been sharing here. Great pictures all around so far from these events. Very important to document them in that way. I want to go over to the third talk of the panel, which is a joint talk by Liuhuaying and Kahn. So Liuhuaying, who's on the call here, introduce you briefly, is a data visualization specialist and faculty member at the Complexity Science Hub in Vienna. I actually had the pleasure of visiting the Complexity Science Hub a month ago when I was in Vienna for IEEE Viz. Liuhuaying creates interactive visualizations that transform complex scientific research and societal data into engaging and accessible experiences. Her expertise spans design and front-end development for interactive data projects at the interface of academic research and real-world applications. Liuhuaying has worked with organizations including the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, the MIT Sensible City Lab, and Smart Future Mobility in Singapore, as well as SPH Liane Sao Bao, producing interactive data journalism and research visualizations. Thank you so much for joining us today, Liuhuaying. And then Paul, who's also on the call. Paul Kahn. His engagement with visualization and large knowledge structures began with hypertext research projects back in the 1980s and continued with the development of diagram techniques for describing information architecture. Paul began teaching information design history at Northeastern University over in Boston at the Information Design and Data Visualization program back in 2015. Paul also created the first agency in France focused on information architecture, preceded by a decade leading dynamic diagrams in Providence, Rhode Island, and led UX projects as experience design director at MadPow. So Liuhuaying and Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. And I understand that you will be sharing your own slides. All right, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm sharing. Are we seeing it? Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. So Paul, you can start and let me know you want the next slide.
So it's really an interesting opportunity to provide a description of this workshop in the context of the other really impressive workshops that we've already heard about. The Visualizing Complexity Science workshop has gone on for 3 years now. And it's a project that is largely sponsored by the Complexity Science Hub in Vienna, and Liuhuaying and myself have been the co-host of this for 3 years. Next slide. The main concept behind this workshop was to create a working space for 5 full days to bring together people from 5 different backgrounds. And so really the emphasis here was to create a collaboration space for people with specific backgrounds, designers, artists, scientists, developers, and journalists. And we've had this wonderful opportunity now for 3 years, and hopefully for a 4th year coming up in the summer of 2026, to attract a large enough number of people who are interested in this collaboration opportunity with these backgrounds so that we could select groups of teams. Go to the next slide. We were able to get 30 to 35 people each year. This was the first year Next slide was the 2024 and 2025, the next slide. And we were able to get people to come from many different parts of the world with a range of backgrounds, so that the visualization that Liuhuaying developed here of the color coding shows you that the groups that we had were people who self-declared. So we weren't judging them to be designers or scientists, but we asked them to say, what's your backgrounds? Many of them were a combination of scientists and artists, or data developers and journalists. And it was very important for us to have a mix on these teams so that people with journalism background, science background, design background, art background would be challenged to work together. Next slide. And so each of these people had a self-declared expertise, and we gave them a way of representing themselves. Liuhuaying designed a badge for each person, so we could see both what their background was and also how much experience they had. And it was also an important factor in the groups that we chose people that had as much professional background as possible. There were people who were graduate students or post-grad, but for the most part, we were trying to attract people who had previous experience in each one of these areas. Next slide. So why don't you turn it over to Liuhuaying to describe the environment that we had.
So those people are from very different background, not just the skill sets, but also cultural backgrounds. So many of them not even know each other or how to talk to each other. Like if you're a developer, you might have difficulty talking to journalists, because this is a group of people that you barely meet. So extremely important to have an ice-breaking session here, especially if you want them to work together and at least stay engaged for an entire week, right? They need to. And I also believe that it's always easier to continue our conversation than to start a new one. So I wanted to initiate this conversation for them. And so I designed this speed dating format where everyone talks to everyone else for 1 minute. And then in order to do that, it's actually a bit of math involved. We have to start with 2 circles, and people talk to each other and then rotate until they finish the rounds. And then they need to break into smaller circles until everyone talks to everyone. Or some people, if are introvert, this might be a nightmare for you. But it works well. And since then, people are more naturally can continue their conversation. As for the program, it of course is changed slightly every year, but the general structure stays the same like this. The first day is dedicated to introduction talks, like we talk about the data set, the tools, and overall context. And throughout the rest of the week, we also have guest talks from invited speakers. They also represent different disciplines. Like we have journalists, we have people from science, and also have people from design or arts. But what really makes this workshop special is the project components. So we always invite 2 scientists from Complexity Science Hub to present their own research as a hands-on project. And for example, in the first year, we have 2 spatial modeling projects. One studies prehistorical population booms and busts among farming societies. We call it the Farmer Project. And another project is about growth computation in the forests, presented by Eddie Lee. We call it the Forest Projects. And then our participants will receive the work package prepared by us and together with our scientists. There will be a paper and the data sets, and also some relevant data sets. And throughout the week, they can also discuss their ideas or project directly with the scientist and ask a question there. And the second year, we had a semiconductor supply chain project presented by Irma Derich, and a network inequality project presented by Samuel Martin Gutierrez and Jan Bachmann. And both projects are focused on network-based complex systems. And from this year, I found that the network inequality research are extremely challenging for many of us because it's very abstract and is often not using the real data. A lot of synthetic data, and also most focused on modeling than the data itself. So it's not a typical case for data visualization project. So this year, I particularly selected 2 projects from this topic. One presented by Lisette Espling-Nobal. She used the synthetic network data to model unfair networks. So to figure out what parameters affects a network to be fair or not fair. And the other one is presented by Daniela Barolo. He used the real network data, but it's to audit ARM recommendations. Like we say, which scientists you recommend for me to be guest speakers, for example. And then the airmen often give you some options, but then is it fair recommendation, or is always recommend males, or you always recommend some high rank from certain countries or so? So this is about this research. And then the teams needs to discuss and choose one project and work on visualization to communicate the research results from those paper. And this is the project schedule that we propose to our people. So they team up on day 1 and day 2, they work together, and day 3, they have to present blueprints showing how or what might be possible. And then they continue work, and then based on the feedback, they implement a prototype and present it on day 5. Of course, we always trying to actively encourage them to share feedbacks across teams, so everyone benefit from diverse skills and perspective in a room, not just from us who hosted these events. And this is the first year. Paul, do you want to introduce this part?
So we have groups of people who do come from very different backgrounds, and I think one of the lessons that we've learned is that this can be really very effective for people who come to the workshop wanting to learn from other people, right? What we've tried to do is we've tried to attract people who have a tremendous amount of expertise, but they're interested in seeing things from a different point of view. And I think some of the greatest satisfaction that I've heard from participants are people who, in their daily work, they are always doing data analytics, or in their daily work, they're always working on the journalism timeline, or they're doing different types of design work. And it gives them an opportunity to think about a project from a very different point of view, and to collaborate with people who have who have skills and opportunities that are quite different. Go to the next slide. We had one outcome, which was for the forest project that first year, the team actually created a children's book, a fully illustrated children's book that was very clearly based on the data sets that they were working with. That was really quite an interesting one. And we also had a team that used sonification from the data set to create soundscapes of the fundamental models of how forests grow. We also had an example of a scrolly-telling piece that combined illustration and the data sets about the development of Neolithic rise and fall of the population groups. And we also had a really terrific example on some of these other slides of people who were creating visualizations that gave everyone in the group the opportunity to take a look at things. We also had in each year, in the next slide, we had art workshop and mentorship, so that part of the workshop, we had a resident artist who helped people understand how to use different types of physicalization for doing their
this one actually it was idea that we wasn't sure that is useful actually in the beginning. Don't know what people would need for this kind of setting. We just thought, okay, if we could provide some tools and to see how people are gonna use it. So this idea is the first experiment for us to set up this art workstation, and we partner with University of Applied Arts in Vienna, and they brought us these pen platters and even generated AI tools and this physical computing setups, and also the 3 artists provided artistic mentorship. And you can also find not everyone, even not every project use the tools like pen platters in their prototype, but many had a chance to experiment with the techniques that they normally wouldn't encounter in their everyday work. So they tried a lot, even they don't use it in the end. And as a result, we can also observe that more groups exploring physical and tangible formats. If you compare to the first year, most people are still using laptops. But this year, second year already, we see there's a physical computing, even outdoor working, and it's more hands-on already. And for example, we had a project like this. I think it's from Chris Group. And they implement the physical globe from a toy, and they use the LED lights represent the supply chains. And so there's lights that you can see the LED lights so going through the chains, and to represent how the supply chain relates to Austria, particularly here, if you see the center. And then another group also come up with idea as a embodied performance, where participants act as nodes in a network, and they pass the messages to their neighbors. So this is to demonstrate how different network structures affect affairs. There's multiple runs, each runs using a different structured network. And also one of the group came up with the idea use a Jenga tower as a metaphor for the resilience of the global supply chains here. And then they interested to continue this project. So with the help of artists and scientists at ELMA, and we helped them realize this project in the end. So you can also find our website. We also present this at this year's workshop. And this year, we decided to continue to have an art workstation. We invited Marlinda Shipush from Budapest. And then she set up this analog workstation, if you can see on the left side. Then you could also see more on the right side. There's more crafts and physical materials and a participants table here. And we found that those crafts also served as thinking tools. So the ways for them to externalize and communicate their ideas within their groups. For example, here you can see how they explored what defines a minority and majority groups in an unfair network. And they use this claim and writings working together. And also you can also observe this year the participants worked more experimentally by using waste materials, instruments, and they are using coffee and feeders, all kinds of the fun objects. And then we can find that the outcomes like card game that lets players experience network unfairness. And also we've had a group using a coffee ritual performance to explore how ground truth is distorted in an ARM context. And they really performed the setting like having a coffee shop. And there's a QR code you can scan to get a coffee menu. You can order coffee. And then some participants also shared the techniques that they already knew, but they experimented together with their teams, like the invisible ink or the Pepper's Ghost illusion. And also many teams developed different metaphors for minority and majority groups. And here you can find their mushrooms and their forests and even bubble tika. And also we have one team created a stop motion film based on their own data. Like instead of using a provided synthetic network data set, they applied the model from the paper to the data about participants themselves, and which actually is a very brilliant way to communicate this kind of abstract research here. It's kind of long, so I'm not going to play it all. And then this year we also had a new setup to trace collaborations. Paul, would you want to introduce this part?
So one of the speakers that we had this year was Dietmar Offenhuber, my colleague and Liuhuaying's professor, and he's done a tremendous amount of work on data physicalization. And so we tried to come up with a way of actually embodying data physicalization in the process of the workshop. We prepared the tables that people were working on with a layer of carbon paper, carbon paper, and then a paper on top of that. And we also put sensors in the rooms that people were working to record the audio level. We weren't recording people's voices, but we were recording the decibel level and also the temperature. Next. And we took this quote from one of Dietmar's books about how much of what we know about the climate we know through computational models, and we tried to apply that to the workshop in the next slide. We thought much of what we know about social networks we know through computational models, and that perhaps we can see the traces of teamwork as a way of understanding that. So if you look at the next slide, we put this material together in the environment where everybody was working. Next slide. And then at the end of the workshop, we took everything apart and we were able to photograph both the traces of how people were working on the table as well as what they actually drew on the tables. And next slide. So we could compare the top layer and the bottom layer, and you could see much more of the physical interaction on the table in the traces that were left by the carbon paper, in addition to the kind of drawings that people were encouraged to do on the tables themselves. In the next slide, we were able to also compare what the levels of speaking, the decibel level, as well as the temperature in the rooms. Of course, this was Vienna at the end of August, so it was rather warm during the day, but you could still see in certain areas that as people worked harder, you saw a difference in the temperatures. And we hope that we'll be able to take this material and put something together as a trace, but I think it was also a way of raising people's awareness, a kind of consciousness exercise to understand that everything that people were doing were leaving a trace, and that these traces were also part of the embodiment of the collaboration. So thank you. Thank you for giving us the time to go through all of this material. And Andreas, if you want to take over and ask any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for those beautiful presentations. It was lovely to see all of these images, especially of people just hacking together and collaborating. We do have an empty hour after this, so if the panelists are okay with it, we can cut a little bit into the 7 a.m. hour just to allow for a bit of conversation here. I have a question for all of the panelists, and I want to ask, what was your last experience at any DataVis workshop that genuinely surprised you? Something like an outcome that you did not expect, an encounter with someone or something that you didn't foresee, something that just left you wondering and scratching your head in a positive or a negative way. I would be curious to hear what you have to offer.
Well, I'll offer one quick one. During the second year, there's a photograph of, in one of the photographs we had, you saw people sitting around on the floor holding a card up. This was the final presentation of a team that was working with network inequality, and they had created essentially a play, an embodiment, where all of the people in the workshop were given material, and we had to pass a message from one place to another based on who we were linked to, based on the numbers that were assigned to people, right? It's very abstract. But at the same time, I participated in this, and it really made it much clearer to me how arbitrary the way in which information is passed in such a network based on how many links someone has, essentially followers. And so it didn't surprise, the outcome didn't surprise me, but the sort of the physical realization of how quickly this happens really worked for me. So that was a very memorable experience.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that throws into relief is that if you shake up the format a little bit, you said this was like an embodied kind of experience. If you change the format from the standard, everybody sits and one person talks, that maybe makes these experiences a bit more graspable. Chris, Donát, Liuhuaying, do you have anything to share? Anything that made you go, I'm surprised?
Maybe also to follow up on Paul's, the 2024 workshop, I also participated in this, and one of my colleagues also was on the photo holding up his triangle, which was, and I totally agree with as being part of this experiencing observers. I agree that especially during this workshop of this full week of team building and everything, I was super surprised about what media one could come up with to use, like, which totally expanded what I would usually do on the laptop, and mostly digital. But and Melinda obviously upped the game this year with her workstation, with her physical one. But the 2024 with this pen plotter and the LED and soldering equipment station from Jonas was like so amazingly well prepared to really go beyond our borders or boundaries what we usually have. So I really enjoyed this workshop so much. So thanks you and Paul for doing it. Yeah, and it was just fun to see what one could come up with being teamed up with a journalist, being teamed up with a person from, I don't know, finance or whatever. So it was like super cool also to meet those people, which I would never have met otherwise.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I only remember the first year when I organized it, since it's whole week, I was very worried no one would show up. Or they show up on the first day and they say, it's boring, I'm not coming back. So I spent a lot of time to think about ideas, how to make them motivated, how to keep them coming back. That's why you can see the speed dating, and there's also many activities, and even I add a workstation, always have something to keep them busy. To whatever reason you come here, there's something you can learn from. So there's a main task for me. Now I'm not surprised they are staying, but first they are really surprised why they want to be here for a whole week.
Yeah, I could ask Donát, you had people working together for 10 days, right? So how did that feel?
Okay, so the team formation and like the amount of days between the team formation and like the final delivery was like 5 days. But yeah, what I've seen from my experience, I'm not like one of the heads of the organizing committee, but I had some glimpses here and there during the conference and during the summer school, and yeah, I saw people like butting their heads into the wall, try to come up with something. Sometimes they had this like eureka moment. They like, and then they just like I don't know, just speaking their minds to the fellow teammates about this like newly coming idea. It was really interesting to see. Although during the summer school, I was not there throughout the whole summer school, but those moments were really interesting to see because this was my first this kind of like event where we organized this thing.
It sounds to me like that would be quite a fire hose. I mean, if you have like a 9-day or even a 1-week workshop, there is so much content coming at you and so many experiences and encounters, you kind of need an internal filter to take anything useful out of it. Which actually brings me to my next question, and that is, so many conferences have kind of a standard format. There's 3 to 4 days of program, there's panels, and then there's talks and poster sessions. But how do you in your own practice, and how do you think we all should in the future innovate in this space? What kinds of events, what kinds of activities within events do you think are currently underserved, could maybe benefit from adding it to these kind of events? Is there any kind of format that you found particularly helpful, something that you would like to see adopted at more conferences that you attend as an attendee? I mean, Paul and Lee, you mentioned earlier these kind of embodiments, or these kind of embodied performances. That seems like something that could absolutely be applied in more event settings. So maybe there's other insights that some of you might have had, where you're like, I wish this was present at more conferences.
I don't go to very many conferences because I'm not faculty, and I'm not at that level professionally, but I just attended the Information Plus conference in Boston, and there was both a feature that at first I really was questioning about, that I felt like it proved itself very well, which is that the presentations, except for the keynote speakers, the presentations were 10 minutes. Right. And if you've got a major project that you've worked on and you have 10 minutes, you have to come up with some way of distilling things down to 10 minutes. And for the most part, I think it worked very well. But in that same way of trying to distill the presentations, I think it would have been wonderful to have also time for breakout sessions for people who felt that there was some commonality between the presentations that were being done, and of course they were grouped into some level of commonality, to have a separate session for people who were just interested in that to sit around and really talk about that. Not the panel. I mean, the panel at the end of the speakers is one thing, like what we're doing today, but I think it would have been really interesting to bring a group of people together who were drawn together by those presentations to talk about what could you do in that area, what was interesting or not interesting about the work that people had done. That kind of breakout session would have been nice.
Yeah, I think we always make up,
I was going to say, those of you who go to 2 or 3 conferences a year, you have more experience with this.
Yeah, I mean, for conferences, like, why you want to go to in person? Why we don't host online? Because we want to social, right? Like, it's impossible to social online for the conferences. And then for people not good at socializing, then it's very anxious thing, I would say. Like, you have to try to talk to people. If you are junior, even harder. Actually, you want to talk to more senior people. And so for me, I feel like it's important for organizers, how this part can be solved, like to make it easier, right? How to make the junior can speak easily, and how they can easily approach to the senior, not just the senior hang out with senior and junior hang out with junior. So like, and for nowadays, many conferences had this format that people speak and then people sit and listen. Even it's a panel discussion and a couple of people speaking, and then most people watching them speaking. Would be benefit that if there will be more interaction with the audience, like not just the panel discussion, maybe not even just a QA, like some more engagement with the audience, because most of the time the audience are also excellent people there, so they also have very good insights. Just unfortunately, they are not invited to be on the stage. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I can add to this. The engagement part is certainly like always like the ice breaking needs to be done in some way. And I also think that this visualization workshop actually worked really well, because it has, or to me, it reminded me of a lot of improvisation theater kind of techniques, which would be used to get this stage, have a lower barrier of entering. And during conferences, I think this is especially a challenge, since you always want to have the panelists always engage also with the audience, and we had this at IEEE Viz as well. But I feel like, and Andy put it last time, I remember very well, that when he said the moment when people see you engaging with your tech, like having a VR goggle or something on, then there will be a domino effect and people will join in eventually. So there needs to be one or two people probably that are kind of having lower anxiety levels that would start off the domino effect. Either if it's to a discussion, or if it's to try out some things that are available. And I also, during the conference in Budapest, I also enjoyed actually that there were a lot of coffee breaks and there was a lot of time to actually engage with the audience and with people being there. I also participated as a low-level researcher, so I can totally feel the anxiety level rising high during such occasions. But there it was super low key to even talk to a huge name of Kati or Albert Laszlo Barabashi. So that was really well done, and I hope this will be more to experience, even if it's a hybrid format. I also agree that in person makes it very easy, or more easier for sure.
Yeah, one thing that they did at IEEE Viz that they started recently is a buddy mentor system. So if you're a first-time attendee, they're going to match you with a mentor, somebody who has been there before. And that's a super easy way of making sure everybody has somebody to talk to. And then, these kinds of relationships just kind of form naturally as well. I think there is no way around the social anxiety. It's just part of being at a conference, but that I think for many people significantly helped. And then as Chris said, if you work with hardware like VR headsets, it's a very easy way of starting to talk to people, because they're going to be like, hey, what do you have there? And I know that Liuhuaying and Chris, you both had stands there, little pavilions where you presented your work. That's also, I feel like, an amazing way of, you don't have to tap somebody on the shoulder, but rather they're going to come to you and they're going to show interest. So these kind of things help as well. I have one more question, which is coming out of the audience. So data visualization workshops are a lot of work to organize, but they are invaluable for training the next generation of researchers. We talked about junior scientists earlier, and practitioners to share theory and hands-on knowledge and to create unique professional networks, and they are fun. So how do you make sure to reach many, not just those that are already well connected? How can you make sure that they stay connected in between workshops? So for example, we have listservs and WhatsApp groups. And how do you coordinate efforts across existing workshop series? So that's a kind of a zooming out question.
So for me, to be honest, for first year, I personally sent more than 200 emails to all the different people who I know, who I don't know. I just searched, and then I need a journalist, and then I found a journalist program, whatever. And I need artists, I contact creators, and on all the ways I can find to make sure I have this balanced ratio of people. It's very, very difficult, because I don't want say, oh, we are doing Instagram workshop, but then end up all the scientists there, all the academia people, or just designers. And this also gives us a challenge to select the people this year. We received almost 90 or more than 90 applications, but we can only host a bit over 30 people because the space and also many other reasons. And then we have to make sure we have a similar amount of people for each category. And then if we have, because we are in science this lab, so we actually can attract more people from academia or research or science. And then we have to tell them, sorry, we only accept 6 of the people from science, and we received a huge amount of people from the similar backgrounds as you, so we have to reject you. So those difficulties happened here. Yeah, this is it is not easy to get right people on board. Yeah.
In our case, the executive assistant, Annick, my colleague, She was handling the email send out process, while I was busy with the like social media aspect of the advertising this conference, etc., etc. Because yeah, on Facebook it's kind of easy to just like pay some money to have like an ad which goes on for like weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks, etc. But in my experience, many, especially younger researchers, are active on Reddit and on X as well. But since advertising on those platforms are much harder because they have stricter rules about that, especially Reddit, X not necessarily, but Reddit, yeah. I was constantly browsing through relevant forums like biostatistics, machine learning, etc. And whenever the topic of conferences or where should I go, does anybody have an idea where should I present this research came up, I was like, oh, I have just the thing for you, man. This is the place for you to go. So yeah, social media coverage is also really important, not just Facebook, but also Instagram, and also these more niche ones like Reddit and X as well.
That is very impressive, Donát. Like doing the network in subreddit forums. That sounds like a lot of work. And did you actually connect with someone who learned about the?
Yeah, and we had a little like feedback survey that we asked the participants to fill out after the conference, where one question was that how did you get to know about this conference? And one of them actually like wrote Reddit. So I guess that's a win for us. So it was not futile at the end of the day.
Very nice. I'm glad all of that hard work paid off. All right, then I want to finish with one last question. And that is, which next data visualization workshop or event are you looking the most forward to? It could also just be which one are you attending next?
As an audience, for sure, the 3 that have been named here. Applying again for the workshop in August, and then obviously the biomedical data science conference was super cool. So definitely. And I mean, I triple this. Let's try again, right? And there is also Kai, which I recently just discovered with a colleague of ours for data physicalization and extended reality. So yeah, that's as a PhD student, that's one of my goals next year.
Paul, how about you? You mentioned that you don't go to many conferences, but is there an upcoming event or workshop around DataVis that you're especially excited about?
I'm sorry to say that I'm not aware of any, but maybe I should spend more time looking around to learn. I mean, I've had this gift through the work of Liuhuaying to spend 1 week in Vienna for 3 summers, and I'm looking forward to being able to do that again. We have built a kind of community. We have built a community in the sense that I've become aware that many people are very enthusiastic about the workshop, and several people have come 2 years, right? They've attended 1 year. They've decided to come back the following year. And again, as Liuhuaying was explaining, it's a complex process to choose people based on the team organization that we were looking for. So it's been gratifying to have people come back. I'm not that aware of other types of workshops that are going on, and my area of research has primarily been in information design history rather than in the practice. So I haven't been looking for workshops to go to, but the workshops that have just been described sound like they would be a great experience.
Well, one thing to put into your ear, IEEE Vis 2026 in November will be in Boston, so it's going to be in your backyard. So that might be an interesting one to check out. That would actually be a great time to connect in person as well. I will definitely be in attendance with some of our team members here, so that might be a valuable one.
Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah, looking forward to go back to Boston again. But actually, I don't know how you guys think, but after the first year organized this workshop, I wasn't sure I want to do second year. If people notice that I didn't even put 2023 there because 2024, which year? 2023, yeah. I wasn't sure I want to do it again. I just do once, and then people ask me, "Do you do it? And you should do it again." I said, "I might not want to do it again. It's like too much work. I don't want to do it." And when I think about it, I have a headache, and it's like very close to the next year that we have to do it, have to decide to do it, and then some participants talk to me and say you should do it, and then I started doing it again, but then it is always a vibe that I feel like I don't want to do it next year. But always after the workshop, I see so many people are so happy and satisfied, and they told me you should do it again and again. Then I went, okay, fine, I will do next year. So this is the motivation for me to do this over and over again. I don't know for Donát if you feel like there's a moment that you feel like I never want to do it again. Or
actually, I think the conference that you have presented with Paul, I think it's super interesting, and I actually it got me like quite curious and interesting about participating in stuff like that. So I don't know whether I can, but I will be willing to participate because it looks super fun.
Well, there's an aspect to what we've been doing at the Complexity Science Hub that is it's both unique, and at the same time, I think to myself, why is it that we can't do something like this in other venues? Where we're doing this at the Complexity Science Hub for a lot of different reasons, but one really important reason is that the workshop itself is really counting on, like it's built on the opportunity to work with the scientists who are willing to share their work, who are willing to present the data sets and do presentations and answer the questions of people who are not necessarily their colleagues, right? They're not necessarily other complexity scientists. And that is what makes it possible to do it at the Complexity Science Hub. And we've certainly had discussions about whether we could do something like this in other places, but we would need to find that resource. We need to find an institution that also had scientists who are willing to share their time and do this kind of work. So if anyone knows of opportunities like that, we'd certainly be willing to talk to them. The techniques and the experience that we have, it seems to me, could be transferred to other places, but we need that type of partnership to make it possible.
Yeah, that's why having these like meta panels or meta events about events also important to identify these kinds of questions. I want to give a brief shout out here in the chat to Dagstuhl seminars. I will be at the Dagstuhl seminar on faithful visualizations for biology in March. Very, very excited for that. I've actually never been to Schloss Dagstuhl. And then, of course, I'm looking super forward to IEEE Viz. I'm looking forward to not having to travel across the ocean to attend the next IEEE Viz. And I actually hope to see, everyone. I hope to see everyone there. So thank you so much. This was a fantastic panel. Thank you for joining me today. I wish you a wonderful Sunday afternoon.